Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Today's the day for Luke Inman's Hendon Hooker vindication or utter and complete shame.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan with Pro Football Network. I've been told that Luke Braun has a very specific permutation of draft picks for the Vikings that he'd be excited to see, and I am celebrating the fact that that will not happen.
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and I am so excited to get hurt. It's draft day, baby!
Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Hey, go easy on my buddy Sam today. I know he's super bummed after today. I can't do my draft countdown bit anymore because draft day is officially here.
We've got official NFL draft predictions for the Minnesota Vikings and a first-round mock coming up on the Minnesota Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom. It's the day that we've all been waiting for. We've predicted, we've projected, we've prognosticated, we've gone every various direction that we could possibly go with the NFL draft. We made it to Draft Thursday. Luke, Arif, I'm Sam. Welcome to this draft day edition of the Minnesota Football Party, which is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Myriad draft props if you want to get on the action today. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. On today's show, Minnesota Vikings predictions for the first round tonight. What's going to happen? We'll stamp in, plant our flag in the predictions that we'd like to make. We're also going to do a first-round mock, alternating picks, and we'll get Ron Johnson's final thoughts as well as he joins a little later in the show. Luke Inman, man, the author of the NFL Draft Buzz newsletter, you've got to be elated today. This is your biggest day of the year. I'm happy for you.
Christmas, 4th of July, birthday, roll them all up. Doesn't get any better than this, Sam. I love it.
Luke Braun, you've got to be excited too. You've had to kill a lot of time on Locked On Vikings talking about this day. Now you can, just kill time until training camp after this.
Very excited to be able to talk about people who are actually Vikings instead of get mad about people who may or may not be Vikings.
And then posting the Viking meme. That's still going to happen after the draft, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a year-round bit.
That's 24/7. Yeah,
no doubt. And Arif Hasan,
I have had.
Go ahead.
I've had so many less people asking me about like this player or that player because they know that if they're like, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? I'm just going to post a Viking meme.
Is there a Will Hernandez of this draft that people fell in love with beforehand and will just choose to continue to link to the Vikings for years and years after?
Almost certainly.
It's almost tongue in cheek with him. Like it's not one of those where he ended up being like such a star that you have a lot of regret. It's just
right.
Kind of
it's just the Vikings passed on him and then everyone got really upset. And so that just continued being a thing. And every time a news story about him appeared, people would talk about it. And I feel like if the Vikings pass on Joey Porter, right, who might fall, right? Like there's been a lot of this past week, Joey Porter has been falling in mocks, has been falling by the consensus board. He might fall past the Vikings might pick a Cam Smith or Deonte Banks ahead of him, right? And so if Joey Porter Jr. falls, I think a lot of people might treat him the same way they treated Will Hernandez, regardless of what the actual prospects for his success are.
You can find Locked On Sports Minnesota wherever you get podcasts. We're free on YouTube, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Subscribe there. Also, Amazon Fire and Roku. Find the Locked On Sports Minnesota app. Let's dive into predictions. I've broken mine down in several different ways. I've got a scenario for if they trade out of the first round. I've got a scenario for if they trade back within the first round. I've got a stay put scenario. You can go whichever way you want with it. Luke Inman, your first round Minnesota Vikings prediction.
Arif tweeted out earlier, I'm not sure how long ago, within 24 hours, in 2018, the morning of the draft, the odds for the number 1 overall pick was Sam Darnold minus 350. Baker Mayfield, the morning of the draft, 10 hours before the draft, was 25 to 1. And it just goes to show you, like, even hours leading up to the draft, more times than not, you never know what's going to happen. I'm fairly confident, though, Sam, I can say this. The Vikings are either going to trade up for a quarterback, they're either going to trade down for more picks, or they're going to take the best cornerback or wide receiver on the board at pick 23. That I feel very good about. Okay.
You've covered,
it's over. Bit's
covered
over.
all your
It's
options.
over. Gun to my head. Here's what I'll say. There's been so much stuff about the Vikes doing more homework than any other team out there on all these quarterbacks. And now the rumor is, all right, they're moving up to 3. Maybe they're going to draft Anthony Richardson. Okay. And that would be really cool. That would be really fun. I wouldn't have a problem with that as long as they got the right guy. And that guy, I think, in my opinion, is Anthony Richardson, because if you're going to take a home run swing, move all the way up there, he's the guy to do it on. He's the guy to get. But I just think about how much draft capital you would have to give up to get there. I mean, you're talking a minimum of 3 first-round picks, plus some extra seconds and thirds in the mix, too. I mean, there's a reason no team has ever moved from the 20s into the top 5 before, because it just costs too much. Like, you're just mortgaging so much of your future. You know, if they do that and they miss on whoever they pick, you've just set yourself back so many years, the franchise back at least 4 or 5 years from now. So is that what Kwesi and KOC want to risk their jobs on in only, year 2 of this new chapter with them? Again, I'm fine with it, but easy to say for me sitting in my chair. My job's not on the line. Gun to my head, I don't think the front office, when it gets down to crunch time here later tonight, is just going to have the guts to pull the trigger on such a massive blockbuster trade like that. Honestly, I think they wait and see if one of the quarterbacks starts to drop, which sounds like they might. Again, never know. Anything can happen. Stroud, Levis, or Richardson make a move, to 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, and only give up 1 first rounder, an extra first, instead of 3 first rounder. But if not, and one of those quarterbacks doesn't fall right in their lap, I think Kwesi's going to do everything he can, everything in his power, to move back and try to get as many extra picks as he possibly can, even if he has to take a discount compared to the Jimmy Johnson trade chart or whatever it may be, because everyone wants to trade back like it's so easy. But when you're sitting all the way at 23, like, who's trading up and for who? Like, I'm legitimately asking you guys, because anyone who's still on the board at 23 that's worth trading up for, Vikings should probably be looking at taking anyways, because whoever it is probably fills one of their biggest glaring needs now anyway, unless it's an old lineman or a tight end or maybe Bijan or something like that, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. So, like, I think it's the first mock I put out, I had Bijan falling all the way to 23 and Buffalo trading up to take
That's right. I remember that. 23. That's right.
Yeah.
And then Vikes took Antonio Johnson, safety from Texas A&M, I think.
Yeah. Bad pick, Arif. But
1.0. Don't worry. It's in the history books. Don't worry.
It's going to happen in the actual draft, and I'll celebrate it.
Right.
But I do think that there's, like, if the Vikings are, and it very much seems like, at least in the Spielman era, that the Vikings, and it wouldn't shock me if Kwesi was like this too, is that the Vikings, if they've got multiple players on the board that they like the same amount, they just trade down and take whichever player they end up with. They've done that so many times. It's funny because they were telling that story about drafting Christian Darrisaw, where they had multiple players that they liked, including Darrisaw. They traded down with the Jets, and then they ran out of players like 3 picks ahead of they only had Darrisaw left, and they're like, oh God, oh Jesus. And then he fell. But like the Vikings do this all the time. They do it all the time in the 3rd round. It wouldn't shock me if at pick 23 they were like, hey, there's 2 corners and a receiver. We like them all equally. We're going to trade down 4 picks. And, it's unlikely that all 3 of those guys will be gone by then, which I've played in enough simulators where that you can't trust that.
But you never know, but worth the risk.
But yeah, so it wouldn't shock me if, like, hey, there's a guy at 23 that someone's willing to trade up for, and that guy might be a guy the Vikings like, and the Vikings are still comfortable with it just because of the way that board is constructed. So that's something to keep in mind. I think, like, of the non-cornerback options, right, in the first round that the Vikings could pick at 23 without trading up or down, I think someone like if like Jackson Smith and Jiba falls, right? Like, that would be I think a really great pick there, even if a lot of people kind of project him to be a slot only guy. I really like that option. Obviously, a quarterback would be a great option. I'm pretty curious about whether or not what if it is like a Kalijah Cansey? What if they pick him at 23? Like, how would you feel given that the Vikings only have 5 picks right now in the draft, and that I would not argue is at the top of the need list for the Vikings. It's not at the bottom, that's for sure, but it's not at the top of the need list for the Vikings. Like, how would you feel about them spending pick 23 specifically on that?
Personally, I wouldn't love it. I would rather see another team. I mean, he's just an outlier, right? I mean, if he's 4 inches taller, we're probably talking about him in the top 10, but history shows that he may have a tough time in the NFL, as good as his upside is. And when he flashes, it's outstanding. But at 23, rather watch some other team take a swing on him. And I would rather play it a little bit more safe, go get one of these cornerbacks. Again, you mentioned Joey Porter, love Deonte Banks as well. Maybe they want a wide receiver to pair with Justin Jefferson. I guess that's fine too. I lean more corner than anything else, even though I'm all about the value. You can find some great guys in round 3 and 4 as well, just like they found a Caleb Evans. But that top tier of cornerbacks for me, I'm leaning that direction more than a Quentin Johnston from TCU or even Jordan Addison. If Jackson Smith fell in their lap, I would be maybe sprinting to the podium, though. He's clearly in that top tier for me.
So, Luke, I need to hold your feet to the fire here. I need a name. Who are they coming away with tonight?
If Arif's telling me that Joey Porter Jr. might slip, if they hand in the card at 23, I'm praying it's Joey Porter Jr. If not, maybe Deonte Banks. But I'll say Joey Porter Jr.
All right. That's actually who I thought in the stay put scenario. That's who I think you stay put for. Arif, is that, would you like to venture Jackson Smith and Jigba?
Is he getting past Pittsburgh at 17? Joey Porter?
I don't think Pittsburgh is that sentimental of a team. I mean, it would be fun, obviously, but teams nowadays, they're all about, maximizing value, right? And so, kids these days,
Yeah, these kids, these teams, Mike Tomlin.
And they got no respect for history. That rascal. Mike Tomlin.
Right. Not at all. None.
We got to hear from Luke Braun.
But
what are you thinking?
Well, Sam, hold on. You didn't let me answer. I don't think JSN is going to fall that far. I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm not going to project him there. And as much as I've been linking Deonte Banks to the Vikings, and if the Vikings take him, I'm gonna run that victory lap regardless of what I say here. I just think it's a little bit unlikely. I'm going to go with Luke here. I think that Joey Porter Jr. is the most likely pick at 23 if they stay there. And last week, I had a different answer. 2 weeks ago, I had a different answer. But that's my draft day prediction, which it's also Luke, so I don't get as much credit.
I'll share it with you.
All right, great.
All right, Braun.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with the corner as well. But not Joey Porter Jr. Just because I think him falling all the way to 23, I don't know. I still feel like we are sitting in a world where there's 4 corners off the board or something like that. But I don't see Cam Smith going. So in the stay put scenario, I'll give it to Cam Smith. But also the stay put scenario for me. Yeah. I like Kevin Seifert gave us Emmanuel Forbes at 23 in his mock.
Yeah, I saw
based on what he thinks the
Kuiper's obsessed with him. That's Kuiper's third corner.
I've seen 2 or 3 mocks yesterday and today that connected Emmanuel. I've seen a lot of mocks. This isn't I saw 800 mocks that connected Emmanuel, but I saw 2 or 3 mocks in the last 2 days that have connected Emmanuel Forbes to the Vikings. I don't love him as a first rounder. That size concern is just so overwhelming for me.
Would you rather have Forbes, Ringo, or Cam Smith?
Smith, then Ringo, then Forbes. I like Ringo more than either of you, I think, but Ringo right now is ranked 49. He fell in the consensus board. Yeah.
You remember the early mocks?
Yeah, he was top 6, top 7 for a little bit.
He was right there.
Now he's 48 or something like that.
I'm going to say if the Vikings actually pick at 23, I'll actually be kind of surprised. I think a trade up or a trade down chance. Is if they do not accomplish the very aggressive trades up that they're trying, if the quarterback that they want are gone, then I think they start working the phones and they just start trying to get the biggest package that they can. I think with a lot of the trade downs Rick Spielman did, like Arif said, they were kind of value moves where we got 3 players, maybe we can move down a little bit, see if we can still get one of these guys. With this particular situation, I mean, I'm sure Kwesi will do plenty of that too in his time here. But with this particular situation, I think if they strike out on getting their QB of the future, the next most important goal will be set up next year to get the QB of the future. So who wants to give us a first? We'll move back as far as we have to. I think that becomes the conversation going in. So, if you're going to stay up for the whole round, emotionally prepare yourself for the Vikings to not make any selections today, because that is very
prepare yourself.
Paul Allen did allude to that. He always does a morning radio hit where he makes his prediction, and he said
today
that could very well, this morning he said that could very well happen, and he's probably the most informed of anyone commentating on this in this market.
Well, it's funny, after the Kevin Seifert article about the 2003 draft gaffe with Mike Tice came out, it said in there, after that happened, Tice, because he was so embarrassed and ashamed of getting booed when he showed up to Winter Park, from there on out, the next 2 drafts, I think, until he got canned, he was sharing his board, the big board, with Paul Allen. So he knew. I don't know. I doubt Rick Spielman and company did that with PA and everything else. But obviously, PA's in the know. But
they did.
It's
for
funny.
Sure.
Oh, I
PA,
think so.
PA knew stuff. Yeah.
PA knew stuff, but they didn't share the
board though.
Well, who knows what they shared, but they shared like their hopes and dreams with Paul Allen.
Well, Tice showed him behind the curtain though.
Yeah,
after that 2003 gaffe.
I'll say this: I love PA. I'm on a show all the time. I think we do overemphasize a lot of the stuff that he says. He did nail the Anthony Barr pick when I think none of us saw that coming back in 2014, and that was obviously a Spielman Zimmer draft. And he has nailed some of the picks since then, some of them less impressive, like Trey Waynes. Everyone linked Trey Waynes to the Vikings at the time. Some of them a little bit more impressive, like Anthony Barr. I know that he talked up Laquan Treadwell that day, but he did talk up a number of receivers that day too. So I do think that the Vikings do share some stuff with Paul Allen, especially in the Spielman era. I will also say that like he is a tea leaf reader like a lot of us. He just has more accurate tea leaves to read sometimes. Like he still has to make some guesses.
It's not gospel. Yeah. He's definitely has some educated guesses for sure. It's not gospel though.
Well, this will be the test.
He's missed a couple times too.
Because he was alluding to running back this morning. He was alluding to Gibbs
after a trade back.
And Robinson potentially after a trade back, and if
that's
occurs,
the thing too. I mean, you can
if you
can pull an Inman and fling out 7 things. I mean, probably one of them are going to be right too.
I don't think Gibbs makes it out of the first round.
I don't think so.
I think get 2 running backs in the first round.
Hot take: I think Gibbs might be a better NFL pro than Bijan.
I don't think that. This feels like the Kenyon Drake is going to be the best out of those Bama running backs take. Even though, I hated that take. So many people had that take. He's like, well, he's a better NFL running back. No, if he was, Alabama would have played him more. This is not the same because Jahmyr Gibbs obviously played a lot, but it just feels like a take for take's sake. I don't know, Luke. I can't get behind that one.
It could be. Let's talk about it in 5 years.
Let's talk about it in 5 years. I think Bijan is so good, man. I think
he's great.
Like, we have to get out of our head, and this is independent of the Jahmyr Gibbs take. You might be right about that, but we just have to get out of our heads on this running back value conversation. And I lead the conversation sometimes, right? Like I am 100%. Hey, don't draft a running back in the first round. But sometimes we let that impact our conversation about a player, just generally. Like sometimes it's just hey, we could just talk about how good Bijan is for a second. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We could do that.
We've swung the pendulum so far to the one side now. It feels like we got to start bringing it back.
It has prevented us from learning about the position.
It has.
Yeah, it has.
Right? Like people have such a difficulty talking about the mechanics of what makes a running back good. It has been years since I've seen a discussion about whether or not contact balance or vision is more important for a running back. And we haven't talked about types of running back vision or the ways that running backs have vision for zone versus these are all important
styles of footwork.
Right. Like Marshawn Lynch's running style was so unique that all of these comps to Marshawn Lynch that we see every year seem like they never work. The only comp to Marshawn Lynch that I ever liked was one that I made because, of course, I like it when I do stuff and I'm never wrong. But Luke, you agreed with me at the time. It was Kareem Hunt in the 4th round.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
I loved it. Oh.
Yeah. But
oh
like,
my gosh.
we never have these discussions anymore. We're just like, he catches passes. He might be like Saquon. Like,
Right.
oh, come
No, you're
on,
right.
dog.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah.
That's a
yeah.
great point. I just want to tap into what Luke mentioned as far as like, all right, Vikings watch all these quarterbacks come and go. They're sitting there at 23. Immediately, the next plan B, is we got to set up for the future. Sam brought up a great point yesterday. They're already down multiple picks for next year, too. They lost their third and swapped it for a fourth with the Detroit for the Hawkinson. Sam, what else did you mention? Is it the Jalen Rager move? That they're down a pick?
They gave up I think it was a conditional fifth for Rager, so they're down to 5 picks.
Already. So even more, gas on the fire to move back, even if you got to do it at a discount, move back, even if you got to move all the way deep into the second round, if it means getting extra picks next year, like a first or something like that, that becomes the go-to for sure. I like that.
Yeah. I'll give you a trade back possibility here after I remind people that we're brought to you today by Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack, you don't want all the sugar and calories. You need the best tasting protein bar in the galaxy. It's Built Bar. You got to try this amazing protein bar with very low sugar, very low calories, very high in protein to give you that pick-me-up if you're a little hungry. It's got good collagen protein. It processes well, but it's still 100% real chocolate. It's an amazing dichotomy, but somehow they thread the needle. And with these amazing flavors, churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, they make it work. And here's how accessible Built Bar is now. You can just stroll on down to your local Walmart, your local Sam's Club, pick up some of those specialty flavors in the pharmacy section, or you can always head to Built.com. Use that promo code LOCKEDON15. So head to Walmart, head to Sam's Club, head to Built.com, pick up some Built Bars, and load up on those today. They're the best protein bar ever. I already voiced that I think Joey Porter Jr. is the stay put option. Trade up option, I think, is Houston at 12. I think if you want to jump the line and get in front of all these quarterback needy teams, I think you got to go up 10 picks or more. I think Houston at 12. They presumably have taken their quarterback at this point. Presumably. I think you pick swap in the first, give him a future first, and maybe a fourth. See if that gets it done. And you take Richardson. I think Richardson is the clear trade-up option. Trade-back option, and this goes off what Braun was saying, the way-back option. I think Seattle. I think you look at what Seattle could conceivably get 3 first-round picks. They've got 5, they've got 20. If Seattle wants to get back up into the first round, you could get Seattle's 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And that would be pretty much equal in the Jimmy Johnson chart. Maybe instead you try to get that future pick, Luke, like you talked about. But what about trading back with Seattle, adding at least one, maybe even getting both of their 2nd-round picks, or a future high pick from Seattle back to 37? What do you guys think about that?
You should check out the Ultimate Mock Draft on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast.
Yeah, Luke pulled that, didn't you? Yeah, something similar.
Yep.
Yeah, traded back, got the
almost
two,
like
you got the
identical,
2-2s,
Yeah.
and Seattle in that
got the
Locked On
2-2s.
special mock. Yeah, I was just gonna say,
And Cam Smith fell out of the first, and I got him.
Beautiful.
Okay, that turns out to be great. I will say, importantly, Luke did give up on a quarterback that just fell.
Yeah, Will Levis was on the board, and I traded out.
Yeah, so
But
that's
I make no apologies.
I do. Or I just make insults. There's no reason to apologize. But yeah, I mean,
Agreed. There's no reason to apologize.
In that specific scenario, I think that's bad. But generally speaking, I like that, especially if you can get Cam Smith. Then again, the Vikings did trade down and get Andrew Booth anyway, and that's been working out spectacularly for them. But no, that specific scenario, Sam, that you outlined, I think would be pretty phenomenal. You said pick 37, right? That's what Seattle has?
Pick 37. They also own 52. If you could get both, that's amazing. If you could get like a 2, 3, and 4, I think you still say yes. Or
if you can get a 2, 3, and 4, and that 2 is before pick 40 or something like that, that sounds phenomenal to me, because especially if you're in that second tier of cornerbacks, like the distinctions between your Deonte Banks, your Cam Smith, your Keely Ringos, maybe your Emmanuel Forbes, those distinctions I think are fairly small, right? And so if you can get one of those guys in the same tier and you end up with like another 3rd round pick or something like that, I think is pretty wonderful. I think that's good. I would depending on how the cornerback board has fallen, or maybe that's not your target, right? I don't know. But like, I like that, especially if like people have been, really pounding the table for offensive linemen and quarterbacks and running backs, like just picks that the Vikings wouldn't take. So you've got a pretty healthy board by the time you get to pick 37 or whatever. I think that would be great, and I'd strongly prefer that to them taking my favorite guy at 30 or at 23.
Mm-hmm.
My trade back within the first round option would be with New Orleans, a team that needs help, does not have a pick until number 29, maybe identifies something 6 spots up. And then if you do pick tonight, my prediction is Miles Murphy at pick 29. That I think he falls late in the first round and the Vikings go edge.
How many edge rushers do they need, man?
The Vikings?
They only have
I get
Smith
that
under contract next year.
Right, I was about to say, I get that they only have like 3 edge rushers and none of the starters under contract for next year, but that is like, because like the idea, I think that they're still going to try and work out an extension for Danielle Hunter, and the idea is to audition Marcus Davenport, right? Like, knowing that like 2 of your 3 edge rushers are not under contract next year, I don't think is exactly the same thing.
This Patrick Jones slander, I'm not going to take it anymore either, guys.
Sure.
There's a lot of ways to solve that
Somebody
problem.
just say his name.
They should grab an edge rusher in this year's draft. I will say that.
Yeah.
Who's taking Keon White, guys? Why did they invite Keon White to the draft? Is he going first round, Keon White?
I mean, they only invited 20 guys, right? So you'd think there have been instances where people who've been invited to the draft do not get drafted. We've seen that.
That's not a perfect hit rate. You're right. But clearly they're hearing something that there's enough teams in the market.
I do kind of want to take a look at this maybe next year, where we take a look at everybody who's been invited to the draft over the past 5-6 years, and then identify the ones that were surprises at the time, right? Because we're going to get an overall hit rate. That overall hit rate is going to be like 97%. That's not going to be a useful number. Take a look at the ones that were surprises at the time, and then see how often those guys specifically were drafted. And maybe also how well they did, right? Because maybe they didn't get drafted in the first round, but like, they turned out to be great. Like they turned out to be like Creed Humphrey or whatever, right? So I don't know why that name stuck in my head as like
it's a perfect.
I mean,
name.
he's the best center in the NFL, right? So
perfect name. Yeah.
But Keon White being invited is really interesting because he was not in a lot of these discussions. And then I put together the final update for the big board from March to April, right? March 29th to April 26th. And Keon White just kind of rocketed up. He's like 37 or something. I could take a look, but he moved up pretty substantially.
Let's do a quick little sim here before Ron Johnson joins. I have already pre-simulated the first 18 picks of the first round on Pro Football Network. We are going to navigate these final 5 picks until the Vikings. Here's what it looks like at this point. Smith and Jigba is gone. Nolan Smith, Peter Skoronski.
Was that to the Colts?
There must have been a trade.
Whoa.
Yeah, let's see what the details were.
Whoa.
Bucks
Will
traded
Anderson.
up to 9 to get Levis? Whoa.
Houston
An
up to 4 to
in-division
get Will
trade.
Anderson.
12-4, not a quarterback. Incredible.
That is outstanding. PFN,
rules.
I respect it.
Yeah.
PFN,
Bucks
we've
moved up for
discovered
Will
is
Levis, I
very
see.
bold.
Yeah.
Very bold. with
Chicago
the,
must have moved back. They're picking 14. They pick offensive
Skoronski.
line. Interesting.
Lucas Van Ness, Jets
Where-
15.
What happened in the top
Bijan
5?
16.
Yeah. Come on.
Bryce
Anthony,
Wow.
Richardson.
Wow.
Oh, Texans.
That's-
Anthony Richardson and Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Will Levis up to the Bucks up to 9 to get Levis.
That's a good one.
CJ
that's
Stroud
that's
to the
good sim.
Lions. Oh, no.
I love it.
This rules.
Oh,
This
that
is
would
a
kill me.
chaos mock.
Hilarious.
This rules.
This is so much better than
CJ
we
Stroud
would have done
be
on our own.
such a good pick for the Lions. That
Yeah,
oh,
right.
come on,
That's a
Witherspoon.
great pick.
We
And
got
they still
Devon
get
Witherspoon. Oh my God.
still get
Oh,
Witherspoon.
I'd be apoplectic.
This is a nightmare scenario here
It's an Armageddon
This is a
scenario.
for the
nightmare.
NFC North.
Yeah. And the Bears got Skoronski, so they don't have to debate about who's tackled.
And they
the
traded
guards.
back,
They just-
too.
they'll
They got
get
extra
their top
picks.
5.
They traded back and got
God.
Skoronski.
Gosh. All right.
So the Patriots are trading back. They're on the clock at 19. Patriots are looking at Darnell Wright, Brian Branch, Deontay Banks, Joey Porter Jr. Let's go around alternating. We'll go with Luke Inman. You get this pick for the Patriots. Who you taking?
everybody's connecting the dots between Zay Flowers and the Patriots. Is Zay still on the board? I don't see him right here in this little ranking.
Oh, there's Zay. Yeah,
there he is.
Zay's
So I
there.
would say Zay,
board, yeah.
even though he's ranked 34th here, just because that's what I've seen the mock the most.
Also, like, since when do the Patriots care about the consensus ranks, right?
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Cole Strange, Chattanooga.
So I think I messed this up. I thought I could just manually pick whenever I wanted to if I paused,
Oh,
but
you have to like,
apparently that's
select
not
all
the
of the
case.
teams.
No, you have to select all the teams to do that.
Gosh dang it.
Oh,
Well,
such
let's
a
just resume.
crazy
Let's
All
draft.
right, we're just simming then. We're simming up to the Vikes. The Patriots take Ringo, Porter,
Keely.
Banks.
Wow,
right.
quarterback.
Jeez,
run.
a run on
And-
corners.
Wow.
Witherspoon, Ringo, Porter, Banks. Wait, you simmed Michael? Like you didn't?
I
Wait,
didn't
Sam.
click pause fast enough. We're gonna restart and edit this thing.
Is this a
sucks.
bad omen for draft night for the Vikings? Remember
How did
this
it
moment.
take us a tight end of all things?
Right.
I don't know.
The last thing we need.
Let's
We
be
take
allowed to
Michael,
do that.
another Notre Dame tight end.
This is the problem, though. I want to sim like a decent amount of this. I don't want to manually make these picks. Is
Well,
that-
okay, but just
Yeah.
only
You have
select
to-
the Vikings.
Okay.
Only select the Vikings.
All right.
Maybe like if you wanted to sim the people picking right ahead of the Vikings, you can choose in the sim. I want to be the Patriots. I want to be the Ravens. I want to be the Chargers.
Yeah,
I
there
wanna
you go.
be-
Just those four.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so who are they now? Patriots,
Ravens.
Ravens,
Ravens,
Yep.
Chargers, Jags.
Chargers,
Vikings.
and
Make
one
sure
more.
Or no, Jags are after the Vikings.
Seattle's 20, Tampa's
Seattle.
19,
That's who we
18's
want.
Detroit.
Okay, let's draft. Let's try this again. All right. Not quite as chaotic this time around.
All right, that was way more normal.
Chase Young getting traded to
Except
Seattle for
all
pick
auto
5.
offers. Yeah, except all auto offers for people like that. Wow, look at that. And the Texans still get Will Anderson.
Jeepers.
Will Levis to
Goodness.
7?
The
Oh,
prophecy.
wow. Devin Witherspoon at 12. This is great. Yeah,
Chiefs move up.
for Skoronski. Except. What? The Giants getting Bijan after franchising Saquon? Wow.
I don't know what kind of offense that is, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, what formation is that go to?
All right, so Brian Branch is gone. Deontay Banks is gone. Jordan Addison is gone.
Okay, Chargers, pick 21.
Yeah, we got three picks or two
QJ?
picks, and then the Vikes. And Ron Johnson waiting in the wings.
I could see QJ, I could see Porter or Van Ness, either one.
I think I would go with Van Ness here.
or
Van
Kincaid.
Ness.
Yeah, let's go with Van Ness.
Yeah, go ahead, punch it. He should be gone by then anyways.
Yeah.
Ravens,
All right, we're
I
going to
could
reject that.
Ravens, I could see
You
corner
rejected the
or wide
DeAndre
out.
Hopkins trade.
The player trades are
That's only
so
for the. We're
funny.
saving that for the Vikings.
They're so chaotic.
Give them Quentin Johnston.
Johnston off the board. Vikings
Ooh.
are
A
disappointed.
lot of fans are going to be bummed. Snipe,
Dalvin Cook
Jesus.
for Ayuk.
Greenlaw,
This
and
is fun.
99.
This is
I
fun.
wouldn't do
We're going to
this.
reject it.
What,
Nick Chubb. That's
Definitely would not do
fun.
this.
We're also going to reject that.
These are fun.
Porter.
Pick Porter. We got Joey Porter.
I think you're sprinting,
Slam
man.
Porter.
I
This
think you're
is a
sprinting.
no-brainer.
I think you're
Joey
sprinting.
Porter at 23. We did it.
Is there anything else on the board there that's worth even
over.
thinking about? If only just to say other names on the board for the people listening who can't see the board.
So
Yeah.
Brian Bresee was there, Keely Ringo was there, Isaiah Foskey was there, Dalton Kincaid and Michael Mayer were both
Cansey.
there. Cansey was there, Cam Smith was there. I think it really depends on your opinion of Keely Ringo. He's a somewhat polarizing player. Maybe Brian Bresee, based off of his history, not his 2022. But I think you would take Joey Porter.
Ron Johnson on draft day.
Ooh.
Joining us now on the football party at 3Ron Johnson on Twitter, host of the Ron Johnson Show. Ron, it's draft day. I know you were thinking about what fit you're going to wear to the draft party tonight, to the broadcast. You're waiting for inspiration. Has it come to you yet, or are you still thinking it through?
No, I'm still thinking it through, to be honest. Just finalizing the, draft day stuff. I got to head over to the Vikings facility to grab some stuff from them. We're going to have 2 shows, I just found out. So we're doing a podcast after the draft, and then we're doing a reaction video. Well, actually 3 shows, and we're going to do a pre-draft show. So just headed over there. So, no, I still haven't. I think it's going to be last minute, whatever looks at me in the closet and feels like it's going to jump. I'm going to take it. Definitely going comfortable shoes, though. I'll say that. I'm going with the Air Max 270s most likely. It's going to be a long night because our last hit is not until after the entire first round. So got to be comfortable at least. That's where I'm going. I'm going with comfort over over like some Cole Haans or some Gucci loafers. I'm going with the Nikes. Like I got to go comfortable.
Gonna be a late
That's
night
strong.
for sure. Gotta be comfy. FanDuel, Ron, our favorite sports book, they've got wide receiver as the favored position the Vikings pick, and then close behind is cornerback. So given the choice between the two, wide receiver or corner, which way are you going?
This is not a strong receiver draft to me. I don't feel like it's worth going in the first round to get a receiver. When you look at past drafts, DK Metcalf, guys like that you can get in the second round, A.J. Brown. I mean, there's some second,
T.
third
Higgins.
round receivers, T. Higgins. Even though he was like 33, though, I think he basically 33, 34, 35, something like that. He was basically a first rounder. But there's so many picks that you could get in the second, third round. If they were to trade back and still get a corner in the second round, get a receiver in the third round, I think they'll be fine. I'm a fan of trading back if they can get a 2 and a 3. I know we had Jordan Reed on from ESPN. He said that he thinks Kwesi's trying to get 2 2s for 1. I don't think anybody's that dumb, but hopefully there's somebody out there that dumb. But I'm guessing a 2 and a 3 maybe for a 1. And if he does that, I'd say go corner in the second round with like a Julius Brents. And you also still have Keely Ringo. I heard Arif talk about him. He's a freak of nature. You can't coach size and speed. He can press. He's very good in press man. He gets lost, and this is what's crazy. He gets lost in the second play. So when guys are scrambling is when he gets lost. And so I think that's something that Brian Flores can eliminate by blitzing and not allowing that extra secondary play. But then also teaching him. He's a young kid too. People have to remember these guys are still young. So a guy like those two guys will be there in the second round. And then when you think about third round receivers, I just think if you think about a right after the catch guy, somebody who can complement JJ and KJ, plus Jalen Naylor. Like, let's not forget, Jalen Naylor could be a sneaky, because Jordan Reed threw that name out there, and I started watching back a couple plays. I'm like, you know what? If you think about the San Francisco 49ers, I saw that Brandon Ayuk possible trade. You can use Jalen Naylor the same way the 49ers use Ayuk. And you can also think about the way they use the jet sweep and all that stuff, and then just find another receiver who can do that kind of stuff. I think they'd be fine. But if Joey Porter's there, I love that draft pick. If Joey Porter's there, you got to take him at 23. Like, he's a day one starter. Again, dad won some Super Bowls. I know his dad because he's with the Steelers. And so, yeah, that's a kid you have to take. And I love his story. Like, his sister having special needs and always being there for him. Like, that's a kid who has it, and he's not going to come in and screw up and do some dumb stuff, during OTAs and minicamp.
Inman, what do you got?
Ron, 21 years ago, you were drafted by the Ravens, pick 123, fourth round. What was your draft experience like on draft weekend? Like, what do you remember about it? Do you got any cool memories or stories about the weekend or about getting calls from Baltimore or other teams? What sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, you know what? After interviewing Joey Harrington and Joey Harrington talking about what he missed, I think I missed the experience. Like, when I didn't get drafted where I thought I was going to get drafted, I began to miss the experience. I wasn't excited anymore. I kind of was annoyed. I was the 9th receiver taken. So if you do most of the drafts, the 9th receiver taken is in the second or third round. We just had a slow receiver year that year because there was a ton of quarterbacks and D tackles. Like, D tackles, D ends, that was the Julius Peppers year. There was a ton in the first round. And corners too. Corners, Mike Rump, Phillip Buchanan, Roy Williams, Ed Reed, DBs dominated our draft class. And so we only had, I think, 1 receiver or 2 receivers in the first round, or maybe 3. It was Dante Stallworth, Ashley Lalee, and I'm drawing a blank on the other one, but there was one more. Ashley Lalee, I know, went to Denver. Dante Stallworth. Oh, and Javon Walker. Florida State. And so that was we only had 3 in the first. So when that happened, a lot of teams that said, oh, yeah, we're going to get you in the second or third, they started saying, oh, we have other needs we need to take care of. The Browns did call me in the third, but my agent said probably not the best situation. So then Baltimore told me if we trade back, we're still going to get you. Baltimore was going to get me in the third, but then they traded back to get 2 fourths, which they got myself and Dave Zostadel, punter out of Ohio. So that's what I remember most is like, I didn't enjoy it like I should have. But after I was picked, not going to lie, like, definitely enjoyed going to buy myself a car, driving down to Baltimore, picking out a house, meeting my teammates. Definitely enjoyed that process, being out on the field. So that's what I remember most. I remember like sitting back being worried about where I'm going to go versus just saying, you know what, wherever I go, I'm going to make an impact. And I think that's what I missed out on.
Still super cool, that experience. I mean, not many people get to live through that. Was it Ozzie Newsome? Do you remember who called you? Was he the GM for the Ravens at the time? Did the GM actually call you at the time? Do you remember that phone call?
Yeah. So it was Ozzie, and then he put me on the phone with Brian, who Brian was familiar with me because of his Vikings connection. So he knew me from the Gophers and so on and so forth. And so Ozzie called first, just said, hey, we're going to take you at pick 123. And I was, and I talked to receivers coach David Shaw, who was with, Stanford's head coach.
David Shaw was, wow.
So talked to David Shaw for a little bit, and then talked to Brian Billick just about, can't wait to get in there. And, and so I had a cool, like, even cut day experience because they bought me. I was the last person bought into the cut day meeting. And me and Ed Reed were still sitting out there. And Brian was like, who's left? And, the secretary told him, like, hey, it's Ed Reed and Ron Johnson. And he had both of us come in at the same time. And so at that moment, I'm like, he's not going to cut me in front of Ed Reed. Like, that would be the worst, like, cut story ever, to get cut in front of another teammate that's going to make the team because he's a first-round pick. But, no, he brought us both in and said, hey, I'm not going to waste my time. You guys are good to go. Get your new playbooks and so on and so forth. And, that was kind of a cool, because a lot of guys were nervous because you're sitting in there and you don't know if you're going to get cut or kept. But for him to bring me in there with Ed Reed kind of really just took the edge off, in that meeting walking in. But I'm not going to lie, when I first walked in with Ed, I'm like, oh, man, I know he's not about to cut me in front of Ed Reed. Like, this is stuff you see on TV on Hard Knocks Live. Because I know Hard Knocks the year before the Ravens did it, and I saw a lot of jokes. And so I'm like, don't do no joke on me right now.
It would have been so funny if that happened and you were like, man, I can't believe they're about to cut Ed Reed. That's crazy.
So this was funny. They actually cut somebody that they didn't cut. Like, they cut the wrong guy. I can't remember who it was, but they told him he was cut. And so he got to his locker, was packing up. And then I think when we were like going to the meeting, one of the coaches said, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, I'm packing up to go to the airport. He's like, dude, like, you're good. Like, what are you talking about? So they had told the wrong, I think there was like two guys with the same first name or something. So they told the wrong one.
Like the wrong David.
You remember that? Like, have you seen Fight Club? You remember that scene in Fight Club where he pulls the guy out of the convenience store and he's about to like redacted him, and he's like, what are your dreams? What do you want to do in life? And he's like, well, you better do that, otherwise I'm going to come back around. He's like, I just saved that guy's life. He's got a whole new lease on life. The best meal of his life is going to be breakfast tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Probably like that guy a little bit, right?
Probably.
This happened on The Bachelor one time. The guy called the wrong girl, and because he made that mistake, they kept both of them. I'm guessing the Ravens weren't able to keep both of the players, though.
No. They ended up cutting the other guy like a day later. So
it's like when Steve Harvey crowned the wrong Miss Universe.
God, being that other guy.
Or the Academy Awards, wrong Best Picture.
I mean, they do tell players, on cut day, hey, if you made the team, you're not safe. There's still time.
Right. Still. Yep.
They do tell, and so, but it still sucks, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We had a guy that went and like bought a car, did all this stuff because he thought he made the team too, and same thing, he was cut.
Oh.
So yeah.
Brutal.
So he waited until cut day. He's like, okay, I made the team. I can actually buy this car, and then.
Yep. And then he got cut.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. It doesn't get easy.
Yeah.
Dang. Braun, what do you got?
There's a lot of possible things that could happen that would be very, very exciting, but I want to know what is your dream? What's got Ron Johnson doing backflips in the studio that could happen tonight? What's your favorite outcome?
Man, with 5 picks, that's the tough thing, is like trading a third. I don't think you want to get a whole bunch of 6th and 7th round picks. So you're going to have to be very greedy and undrafted free agency. I think for the Vikings, like, they're going to have to spend that $1,500, maybe $2,500, maybe $10,000, $12,000 to get some undrafted free agents and really like pay them to come in. But I honestly, like, draft day, I mean, the Hendon Hooker thing to me, I like it. I went to sleep on it and then woke up and I'm like, please don't be a Kellen Mond 2.0. Like we got so excited about Kellen Mond, and then it didn't work. And so I do know Kevin O'Connell is a QB whisperer. I do know that he is going to pour into the QB, whereas Mike Zimmer took from the QB. I imagine Mike Zimmer just
Good way
being
to
like a
put it.
leech to quarterbacks and just sucking on them until they die. Where he, or like a mama bird, like he steals from the quarterbacks and feeds the DBs. Like, he's like a mama bird to the DBs where he's spitting in their mouths and then taking from the other guys on the team to feed his DBs.
Noted vampire.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, basically something like that. Like transference of power. I don't know. I'm not a Harry Potter guy. I don't know those shows, but like I feel like that's. But Kevin
No, I think you
O'Connell
nailed it.
If he could be a QB whisperer, I think Hendon Hooker, if you give him a year or two to get that knee right, be able to get healthy. I mean, you watch him again against Alabama, and that's the best tape because you're playing the best of the best. You're playing against Will Anderson Jr. Hendon Hooker was legit, and so Kirk Cousins can't think at the age of 38, 39, 40 that the Vikings still can put a ton of capital into him. Unlike Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how he's pulling this off with a $107 million balloon payment next year. Like, that's ridiculous. And so if you think about that, like Kirk Cousins, I hate to use that, quote there, but you're not him. You're not that guy. Like, you're not that guy, buddy. So I think Kirk Cousins should be happy with whatever he gets. And if he can be a steward and a leader and teach Hendon Hooker how to take over this team, I think he needs to Brett Favre this thing for Aaron Rodgers 2.0 and Hendon Hooker. Like, I think, if anybody were to be humble and have humility and taking a quarterback under his wing, it would be Kirk Cousins. So I could see Hendon Hooker being like an excitement pick. But again, if Joey Porter Jr. is there, I'm still excited about that because now this draft, I mean, Will Anderson Jr. is now looking like he's going to go to the Texans. You got the Tennessee Titans talking about taking Anthony Richardson. I mean, there's so many rumors out there now today. I think most of these GMs woke up, had breakfast, and said, "Let me screw with everybody today and just throw some names out there." Like we're gonna draft Tom Brady because he's entered his name back into the draft. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think Hendon Hooker or Joey Porter Jr. does get me excited. But I still think there's so many pieces to this puzzle that they need to fill. They're doing it bit by bit, but I honestly feel like this is going to be an undrafted free agent. Like, they're going to have to eat it up. Like the Ravens did that my year. And then fast forward to 6-7 years, they won a Super Bowl. We had 19 rookies make the team that year. And so I think that's where the Vikings are kind of headed. Like, they're going to have to get a lot of undrafted free agents and younger guys to fill this roster out.
Yeah. Arif?
First of all, clearly Ron Johnson has his life together using mortgage terms like balloon payments. But Luke and I
don't do those 5-1 arms. Don't do a 5-1 arm. Never
absolutely not. Luke and I were talking about Ron Johnson metaphors. I cannot repeat the metaphor that Luke Braun used. So Ron, I encourage you to DM Luke after the show to figure out what metaphor he used that reminded me of your storytelling, because it was really phenomenal. My question, it's actually related to the metaphor that he used. My question is about, hey, so I've seen a couple of whispers / weird, crazy mocks of the Vikings trading all the way up to number 3 or number 4, right? Let's say they trade 3 first-round picks and the 2024 and 2025 second-round picks, and they grab Anthony Richardson. What are your feelings on that? What are your thoughts?
Good luck. That's my feelings on that. Good luck with keeping your jobs. I don't feel like that's the answer. It sounds cool to do, to mortgage your team for maybe a possible future QB, but the difference in leveraging and mortgaging your team, like the Jets, for instance, you're getting Aaron Rodgers, you got Alan Lazard, and you got a top 5 defense. That's why you do that. You got Breece Hall, you got the offensive rookie of the year. That's why you do that. I don't feel like you do that when you're competitive rebuild, we're calling this.
Right.
You can't mortgage your future with a competitive rebuild. The Jets can do that because honestly, if the Jets win the Super Bowl, they don't care if their team gets snapped by Thanos. Like, they really don't at that point. Like, we saw New York, they just won a series and they're flooding the streets of New York. So clearly New York is like, look, let's just get us the Super Bowl. We'll figure out the rest later. I mean, if they're willing to pay Aaron Rodgers $107 million in 2024, that's half of the freaking salary cap just about. So, I mean, I don't know what the Jets are going to do. I don't know what fairy dust that Robert Saleh has, but they're going to have to figure that out. So, no, I would not be excited the Vikings did that. That's way too much for an unproven college kid that has the 6'4", 6'5", 244 frame, 4.3 speed. But what are you going to get out of that? Are you getting a Ryan Leaf? Are you getting Marcus? Was it Jamarcus Russell? Like, what are you getting out of that? And that's what I'd be careful of.
Ron Johnson will have reaction to the Vikings activity tomorrow morning on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable. Make sure you don't miss that. You can follow Locked On at Locked On MIN as well, or at 3Ron Johnson on Twitter. Thanks so much, Ron. Can't wait to see your coverage tonight.
Appreciate it.
All right. Good stuff as always with Ron. Let's outline our coverage plans before we get out of here. So tonight, Luke Braun, you'll be live on Locked On Vikings all the way through the first round. Then we'll have live reaction here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Luke Inman will join for that. I'll be there from the facility from TCO Performance Center. And then we'll do it all again on Friday. More reaction on Locked On Sports Minnesota, including Luke Inman working the YouTube Shorts for instant reaction to every Minnesota Vikings pick, and Luke Braun at Locked On Vikings with extensive analysis there as well. Arif Hasan, you'll have it from the national perspective. Give the Vikings some love, though. Don't be too hard on the Vikings when they take Mo Ibrahim with their first-round pick.
How could I possibly be mad at that pick?
And you can find his work at profootballnetwork.com. Guys, we made it. Thank you all to our everydayers for sticking with us through this off-season portion. We're now at the draft. Thanks so much for watching, listening. You've been great. All the feedback we've gotten has been awesome. And all the provocative takes now, they come to fruition tonight. For Luke Inman, Luke Braun, Arif Hasan, I'm Sam Ekstrom. It's draft day. Enjoy the night, and we'll talk to you next time on the Minnesota Football Party.